Welcome to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast. And you're very welcome back to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast with your host Mark Kennedy. We've Ruairi Walsh and Kieran Collins with me again, and I know we took the week off there last week. It's safe to say, lads, it's been a quiet week since we last spoke. How are things?
Good, Mark, yourself?
Yeah, I suppose key headlines here, lads, since we last week spoke. Harry Ruddle, the Heroes, Ballygunner clinched their maiden senior All-Ireland title against Ballyhale in Croke Park. University of Limerick win the Fitzgibbon Cup. And also the return of the Allianz National Hurling League as well. Have a quick look back at round 2 and do a preview of round 3. So I suppose, guys, chronological order, maybe we'd look at the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Club final. I think it was one of the most exciting club finals senior-wise I've watched in quite a long time. Looked for good long periods that Ballyhale had the upper hand, but credit to Ballygunner, stuck to the process and snatched a good win at the end. Ruairi, what were your thoughts on the match?
Yeah, super game and fairy tale ending in a way for Ballygunner winning their first title and doing to Ballyhale what they had done to Rhinos in the last minute, what Ballyhale had done to Rhinos, and also what they had done as well against Thomas's. So yeah, it was and what a goal to win it from Harry Ruddles, and he had became a household name in that instant. But it was some strike. Just delight for them. I had a sneaky bet on them before they played the Munster final, kind of based on how they were going in Munster, and also with Ballyhale hadn't been putting teams away like they had. They were relying on a bit of luck, and you were kind of wondering, I know going to a final, would it be, obviously it's going to be really difficult to beat a team who are so experienced in finals, but you just kind of felt there was something a bit different with Ballygunner this year. They had a bit more purpose about what they were doing, and all their sights were set on, after winning so many Waterford titles in a row and a few Munsters, everything was all set on winning the All-Ireland. That was probably their target from very early on. So yeah, and also with sports psychology and everything attached to these teams, I don't think like the whole thing of saying first final and this kind of stuff was going to be as big a deal. They were probably prepared well that way, and yeah, it just showed the heart that they could actually at the very end when everyone thought they were beaten, they obviously believed themselves, and yeah, what a way to win it.
Absolutely. Kieran, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, absolute great game. Doing what Ballyhale did to teams over the years, it was turning on them and last minute goal. If you were going to be critical on anyone, I think even looking at Hutchinson's goal, like the keeper should have saved, a shot from that far out. You hear some people saying it could have been blocked, but looking back, and I think the keeper has to save it. And the same for Hutchinson's goal. I think that was, if it was the other way around, if the shots were in and O'Keefe, I'd without a doubt say that they wouldn't have been goals. So it's hard to be critical on a club player. He's obviously, but Ballyhale they've been superb over the last few years, and I'm not writing them off. They probably will be there again next year. But great story for Ballygunner and great story for Waterford, and I think it'll give them a huge boost going into this year.
Yeah, Desi Hutchinson's outstanding. And you'd have to think Ballyhale would have been preparing for Desi Hutchinson. They knew they had to stop him, so he would have been talked about a long way out for them, and yet still he kept them in the game when it looked like Ballyhale might stretch away. At one stage it was Desi who kind of dragged them back in. He was phenomenal, I thought. Yeah,
unbelievable. I think he's been, if you're looking back at the whole club championship, he's probably player of the championship for me anyway. If he can pull that form into Waterford, they could be looking at a long year.
God, absolutely. And I mean, Park Manny chipped in with 7 points there, critical stages. But I just thought the composure, lads, from Ballygunner. I mean, their first All-Ireland final, you wouldn't have thought it. Had a bright start, didn't put points on the board, and then Ballyhale suddenly gained momentum, and in that second quarter, they outscored Ballygunner 7-2, and for most teams there, the pressure would have been completely on them. Ballyhale up 10-7 at the break, and then Owen Reid scored the goal after 43 minutes. Seemed to open up a bit of a decisive gap, but Ballygunner lads have been saying throughout the week was that they were just going to keep going with the process, keep going, execute the game plan. If it wasn't going well, just keep executing. And as you said, lads, I think Desi Hutchinson was nothing short of sensational. During the contest, the goal came at a right time for Ballygunner, an immediate response. So no, it was very much tit for tat, wasn't it, going into that last quarter? Really, Ballygunner weren't going away, Ballyhale with their noses in front. But did you feel, boys, Ballyhale going a little bit cautious? Did they kind of draw players back a little bit? Because I've seen kind of reaction here of Barry Coughlin particularly. I know he had a tour of time with Colin Fennelly at the start, but then grew into the game. But his comment after the game was kind of suggesting that he felt that Ballyhale were kind of sitting a bit deeper, particularly in the last 5-10 minutes. Would you agree with that assessment, Ruairi?
Yeah, definitely. At the end, there was an element of them holding on, and you would have thought like Ballyhale would be the kind that, the typical Kilkenny team, if they're up 2 points, they'll put 4. They'll get the gap to 4. But there was an element of them holding on and pulling men back. I think they'd be disappointed with performances of Owen Cody and Mullen. Two guys really that, let's say Desi was the go-to forward for it. I know that TJ Reid has been doing it for years, but these are the new kids on the block for them over the last few years. And I just thought like that there was more in them. And if Ballyhale are kind of looking at maybe who didn't perform to their potential on All-Ireland final day, there's 2 guys really, with 2 former young hurlers of the year. And yeah, I thought like if those 2 boys had hit form along with TJ, then, no matter what Ballygunner were going to do, it was going to be hard.
But I think as well, looking back on the year, Mullen has been poor. Like, he hasn't been up to the same standards he would have been last year or the year before. It's been a poor club championship. And like Kilkenny are going to really rely on these lads. Like they needed these 3 guys back in. From a Ballygunner perspective, like just the belief they showed till the end. Like Harry Ruddle, junior hurling last year, dying seconds, calling for the ball, having the confidence to take it on. So I'd say the self-belief in Ballygunner must have been off the charts. And as I said, they didn't give up. They believed in themselves, and hats off to them. I think it's great.
Absolutely. And I mean, for Ballyhale, like you look, there's 11 different scores during the 60 minutes, which I thought was a phenomenal stat. But kind of going back to Adrian Mullen, guys, where's his most favoured position? I mean, we've seen him in schools lording it in the inside full forward line. He started with Kilkenny in the half forward line. Now he's, after the ACL, he seems to be now in a middle third role. Where do you see Adrian Mullen, from a Kilkenny perspective, I suppose? Because as you say, Ruairi and Kieran, quite rightly, I mean, it's really Mullen and Cody these are the guys that are going to have to drive Kilkenny on this year. Be interesting to get your viewpoint there, Kieran. Just in terms of Mullen, where do you think his favourite position should be?
Yeah, like I suppose looking back at last year, centre sort of forward. But then you're kind of looking, why has Cody deployed Pádraig Walsh centre forward for the last 2 games? So is he seeing something that's going to come down the track? Walsh I thought, had a very good game against Tipperary the last day out. I think 4 points. So interested to see, will he be there come championship? Is Cody seeing a couple of weak spots in the forward line? Like TJ, he's superb, but not getting any younger. It's hard to know. Cody, I think with Walsh going up there, there's something amiss. Walter Walsh, like there's a lot of inconsistency with Kilkenny. Like Walter Walsh has been in and out of the team, coming on as a sub, doing well, then the next day coming on, not doing as well. Mossy Keown, like he had 2-2 against Antrim, and then the last day I think he only scored a point. Like there's no consistency in the Kilkenny forwards, and this is where TJ Reid is still going to be heavily relied on, as possibly on Cody in the inside line.
Absolutely. Ruairi, any thoughts there?
Yeah, just I suppose thinking of going back to Mullen, I think he has played his best hurling for Kilkenny at wing forward. Like remember the first half against Limerick in 2019, and physically he we know Kilkenny started that game, massive work rate and intensity, and I thought Mullen was kind of leading that for them. He was actually right in front of me at the game, so I was keeping an eye, and I thought he was brilliant. And that day, and he hasn't hit that. I know he's had the injury, but he hasn't hit that level since. I haven't seen it since from him. But yeah, again, Cody still will be delighted to have these guys back. Like it's half his forward line. With Walsh in there as well, centre forward, it does give maybe a different dynamic to it. But is TJ going to push out to the wing then as a puck out target, maybe in around closer to goal? But I think TJ's best role is ball winning. Really strong in the air, brings players into play around him as well. So he is your all-around hurler, in terms of not just striking and skill and free taking everything, but just that ability to win dirty ball. So it's hard to imagine TJ not in the half forward line. But yeah, I suppose that's the one thing that the last few years, you even look through the league with the Ballyhale players gone, and it's the same names again. Cody has been going back to guys that kind of, as Kieran said there, guys that have been kind of looked at before, substituted in big games, and suddenly they're back in again. Just looks like he doesn't, Kilkenny don't seem to have that depth and talent that we have been used to with Kilkenny for the last few years.
Absolutely, be a fascinating watch I think with Kilkenny in the next few weeks. But I think, as you said, Kieran, what a tonic for Waterford hurling as well, and I think heartiest congratulations to Ballygunner. And that weekend as a whole, you see Kilcoo from Down, small parish on the Ards Peninsula, winning as well. Ballygunner, Waterford. It's not every year you see Waterford and Down teams win a senior All-Ireland, so I think it can only be good for club game and also hopefully inter-county as well for those counties as well. So heartiest congratulations, Ballygunner. Look, Ballyhale are hurling giant that they are. They'll never go away, and I expect them to be bouncing back as good as ever next year. I suppose, guys, we could maybe switch on to Carlow Fitzgibbon Cup. Again, it was a very exciting finale here, lads. The two semi-finals at Fitzgibbon were sensational, with NUIG, Pippin, GMIT up in Pearse Stadium in Salt Hill by a point, and then Mikey Kiley's inspirational goal for University of Limerick against Carlow IT, setting up a dream final. And I think for many respects, the final did deliver. Plenty of flashpoints, but University of Limerick on top. Kieran, what were your thoughts, your initial thoughts of University of Limerick winning by 3 points?
Yeah, I thought both games played had their purple patches. At different points you could say, yeah, UL are on top, and then it turned a bit, and you think Galway were on top. And I coming towards the end, you would say Galway were in the driving seat to see it out. Okay, red card may or may not have been the deciding factor of changing of the game, but UL finished stronger. They kept the fight going, and I suppose deservedly in the end won out by the margin they won by. Looking back at it, Galway heavily relied on Ireland on the frees. I think he had 12 frees, and Galway only had 3 scorers from play. So I think to win any final, you need more than 3 scores on the sheet. I think Ireland had 14 points, 12 of them were from place balls. So as opposed to UL, where they had scores coming from all over the field. Brian O'Mara, I thought he was absolutely unbelievable, and if I were Bonner, I would be making a call and getting them into the tip setup, because I think he's just what they need.
Yeah, it's with Brian O'Mara, you're there in kind of the week or two after Paddy hangs up the hurry, you're saying, and here is the next 6, but he's not in the tip panel this year. He's travelling. Apparently, by all accounts, he's gone travelling. So yeah,
that's correct. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I do everything in my power to get him to change his mind.
Seize his passport.
I'd say he could be travelling down to the Rag and Thurles for training sessions now. It's giving up performance.
He played a couple of league games last year and he got injured before. I think Sheedy was probably really looking at him last year even as being, we were saying there a couple of weeks ago about how Tipperary kind of remained unchanged under Sheedy, and he maybe stuck with the older guys that bit too long. I think his hand might have been forced with O'Mara, because I think it's somebody that he was rating last year, but injury kind of took him out of the equation for a championship. But he was phenomenal, and they were a very physical team, UL. TJ Brennan as well. The match itself, the final was quite a physical game, and so I thought, it was probably skill wise wasn't the greatest game to watch in terms of phenomenal scores or whatever. Again, I had Mikey Kiley doing a Harry Ruddles at the end of it, all right. But in terms of quality that way, yeah. But in terms of intensity and hits, and I thought it was right up there with inter-county in terms of the intensity of it.
Absolutely, final has to be won, and you have to win your battles, battle in the trenches. And in fairness to University of Limerick, there was various periods, very much like Ballygunner in the club final, where they could have had the pressure applied on them by NUIG. But they responded manfully, I thought. O'Connor chipped in with 9 points, 8 from frees. Mikey Kiley, what a week for him. From the semi-final to extra time, the miracle shot going in against Carlow IT in Carlow. And also Connolly as well, lads, from Lockmore Castellini. Thought nothing short of sensational.
Yeah, I think he had 3 points for play, didn't he? Very
exactly,
good game.
So as you say, Kieran, an awful lot of dependence there on Evan Nyland. And, there was... I thought NUIG kind of in their attack was the cohesion wasn't there. Even Cian Lynch, I felt, was a very secondary figure. He didn't seem to be a primary ball getter. Ball seemed to be away from him an awful lot. The incident that we'll remember Cian Lynch by in this final is this red card. I know it's been talked to death at this stage, guys. Don't want to be hashing old wounds, but what was your viewpoint on it? There's various interpretations and what the red card was about. Do you feel, first Ruairi, that was a legitimate red card issued by Fergal Horgan?
Absolutely wrong decision. Even at the time when I suppose the reaction as well because it happened right in front of the incident happened right in front of the UL bench and management and everything, and I think that might have influenced Sean Clear, who it was Sean Clear really who seemed to call over Fergal Horgan, and obviously he went for the advice from the linesman. But as we can see in replays, like it was kind of one where you bring the ball forward 10 yards even. I don't even know if it was a yellow card, to be honest. Had it a bearing in the game, we don't, like, as we said, Cian Lynch wasn't in the match like we thought he'd be. He had a very quiet game up until then, but still, being down to 14 men trying to see out a game like that, it had to have been a factor. Just before actually Mikey Kiley ended up the hero, but he missed a sitter of a chance where the keeper did produce a great save, but it had to be stuck. So I'm delighted. He's delighted he got that chance to redeem himself in a way, because had they lost the game by a point or two, I'm sure it would have been something that he'd have regretted, like not, finishing that chance 10 yards out, maybe 1-1 with the keeper, where he had time to plant his feet and everything. But going back to the Cian Lynch incident, it was a massive factor game. It was a wrong decision. I don't think, I don't know if has anybody actually come out and tried to say it was the right decision? Because the more you look at it, you just see it actually looks worse each time in terms of how badly they got it wrong.
Yeah, Kieran, your thoughts there?
Yeah, and obviously Horgan took the advice of Clear. It wasn't a red card that you'd normally associate with Fergal Horgan. Horgan, he's one of the best. He can make mistakes, like any we're all human, but like Horgan, generally that tippy-tappy stuff or messing, once it's not above shoulder level, usually does let it go. Obviously, he took Clear at his word. You'd like to think if Horgan was to have seen the insult himself, it wouldn't have been the same outcome. Whether it had an effect in the game, I'm sure if you're on the NUIG, if you're on the panel of the team and your star player as such is sent off, I'm sure the mindset has to change a bit. UL were coming on top and they were about to have a perfect match, which we all know it was. But whether it had the effect or not, I suppose we'll never know. But definitely wasn't a red card.
Yeah, because I think we should be lauding University of Limerick here. Just given the last quarter again, amazing to fight back against Carlow IT as well. They just, never say die attitude. They've always finished games strong. I felt even before the Cian Lynch sending off, and you can chime in here, lads, I know I felt we're sitting back a little bit deep. Very much Ballyhale last 15 minutes. Keen Salmon seemed to be one man full forward line. Everyone else had very much retreated back. So I think the Cian Lynch red card probably did kind of accelerate things a bit in terms of UL then winning an awful lot of halfback ball. O'Mara just being completely inspirational on the day. Kind of became a very dominant figure, providing an awful lot of quality ball in. Same O'Connelly as well. But hopefully it shouldn't really track too much on the University of Limerick, because I think they're very worthy champions, just given the score spread, the style of play, the resilience, everything about them, particularly even in the semi-final, going to the home patch of Carlow IT and getting a result in that fashion. I mean, they've had to do it the hard way here, and I think kudos to University of Limerick. And I mean, I know NUIG are appealing the Cian Lynch red tonight, but very much scant consolation. But I think it's one particularly up here. It's been a bit of a sore one since that result. But again, they never really killed it off. NUIG, did they? They always kept University of Limerick were always in touch. Maybe, lads, we can switch maybe to the Allianz Hurling League. Just on the round 2 review. Anything really kind of stand out for yourselves? I know, being myself and Kieran, being from Limerick, and Ruairi from Clare, it was another kind of disappointing weekend in round 2 for Limerick and Clare. But anything really step up for you in terms of marquee headlines?
To be honest, as well, I thought Wexford were quite poor in the game. Both teams, it was a really poor kind of standard game after the night before, where Limerick and Galway was, a humdinger of a match. The standard, like Clare shot themselves in the foot with the breeze in the first half, just shooting from crazy angles. I think Dermot Ryan maybe had 4 wides from wing back in the first half. Then when John Connon kind of went in around the edge of the square, they had kind of somebody to aim at and kind of change things slightly for them. That was his kind of first game back as well, so he did look a bit off the pace, but still had an influence on it. I thought after half time, for the first 10-15 minutes, Clare really tore into them. It reminded me of the first half against Waterford in the championship last year for 10-15 minutes. Now they weren't able to sustain that, and so overall, it was just really disappointing again. Even though there was an improvement on the previous week in the Cork game, especially in terms of they showed a bit more fight and a bit more will to win and all of that, but just still there's certain things that are just glaringly worrying at the moment. The backline is still a big worry. Just as I pointed out, the shot selection was crazy with the breeze, and that's kind of, if you look back and say where did they lose the game, it was in that first half when they had a good bit of possession, and just taking poor options. And like Rory O'Connor then at the other end was doing untold damage on our back line, and Clare couldn't seem to get like the right man to pick him up or even to slot a man in front of him. It just so from Wexford are 2 out of 2 and won a really low scoring game against Limerick and then a really kind of poor standard game against Clare. So they're top of the table, but it's a strange one, isn't it? Without being overly impressive.
Yeah, I think what was Darry Egan said, stuttered over the line, which I think was a fair assessment. I mean, as you say, Rory 11 wides from Clare in that first half really wasn't really good enough, was it? And just get your thoughts, Rory, about Rodgers. You know, we didn't mention it. He was injured midweek for University of Limerick. I'm not sure what the extent of the injury here, Rory, is, but Rodgers was scoring pretty heavy for University of Limerick. What's the prognosis there for Rodgers, and is that maybe another kind of genuine concern going into the rest of the league? Just
heard like that, just asking guys up in UL what the story is, and they seem to think that it's a serious injury, that that he's going to be out for the season. I think it's ACL. Now that's not confirmed, but that's what I was told. Somebody was saying. So either way, it's a long-term injury, and it's a pity because he was really, both for UL and for Clare, he was really looked settled in that Clare team this year. Shane Meehan as well, 2 young lads who are making a difference. Crotty too. So yeah, it's something we pointed out before, that there are players coming through for Clare. They all seem to be forwards. We're praying for a couple of backs to come along. So it's a huge blow for him. Like, he's 21 years of age, just really starting to establish himself and maybe claim a starting jersey for the championship. And talk about poor timing and missing the final and everything for UL.
I know.
So best wishes him in his recovery.
I think as well, Rory, defensively for the 2 extra goals, like Rory O'Connor just pulled away from 3 or 4 defenders, won't say unopposed, but they made it very easy for him. And the same for D. O'Keefe, like he ended up being all alone. Had a time to pick where he wants to put it. So I think frailties in defence seem to be the issues for Clare. Rodgers he's been very good this year. Hope it's not as serious as it sounds. I think he would have. I think he's had enough done already to even say that he'd have a starting jersey.
Yeah. And even go back to the first goal, I think it was Paul Flanagan just fell off the tackle of Rory O'Connor. He just kind of skipped past him. And then in the second one, it actually came Clare were working the ball out of the fence, and David Fitzgerald just dropped a hand pass. David Fitzgerald, who had improved since the Cork game, back at wing back, looked a bit better, but it's just these kind of errors, and at this level they get punished. And Wexford, 5 seconds later, ball's in the back of the Clare net when it should have been Clare on the attack.
For Wexford, 2 from 2. I mean, I think it was a good end to the game. I mean, from the minute 56 to 66 minute, they outscored Clare 1-4 to no score, and I suppose that was kind of decisive closing exchanges. But I mean, even from Wexford's 10 wides during that open period as well, it was kind of a funny game, wasn't it, in terms of the accuracy, maybe the shooting selection not quite there. But I suppose Darry Egan, can he really assess in terms of where Wexford are, Kieran? 2 from 2. Now he has a big game coming up, heading up to Galway this weekend. I suppose that will be a big barometer given how Galway performed against Limerick in the TUS Gaelic grounds in round 2. I thought they were very impressive. I thought that was a statement of intent from Galway from start to finish. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. From Wexford's point of view, like, we're coming to a stage of the league where, like, managements are going to have to start putting what they think is going to be their starting 15 together to play a match or two. For the likes of Egan, like, what system do they play? Will they? I imagine, depending on what team they're going to come up against, like, you could see the sweeper deployed again for Galway. One thing I liked actually about them against Clare, they had 4 points from the half back line, which adds another dynamic that they mightn't have had in the past. So they have 2, Damien Reck and Conor Flood, 2 good scoring wing backs. So I think they'll be confident in themselves going up to Galway. A chance at it, and I think it'll be a real assessment of where they are come the end of the match. So you could make excuses for Limerick first day out, but I think Galway will be the benchmark for them to see where they're really at going into the championship. I
suppose even going for Limerick on round 2, I mean, I thought there was a few positives there, particularly Kieran. So we're Limerick men, Cathal O'Neill kind of came on. Was very prominent. 4 points was a good highlight from him. Gillan scores the 1-1, scores a goal very early. But I suppose this thing with discipline now in Limerick is kind of rearing its head again, with the Gearóid Hegarty red card. And I know we had good banter there during the week in terms of, controversial red cards or discipline. Talking about like Cian Lynch or the Tony Keady kind of affair when he went over to the States. God, the media really kind of blew that up. But I suppose from Gearóid Hegarty, he really should have had no complaints about the red card, did he?
No, No, zero. No, it was a red card all day. I don't think he'll have any complaints himself about it. Limerick, I suppose, despite playing most of the second half with 14, I thought there was some positives as opposed to the first game. O'Neill was, I thought, superb. Really struggled against Wexford, and I think he's put his hands up now. 4 points. I thought he exceptional. Gillan, I suppose, a kick in the arse from the Wexford game. Getting out ahead of his man. I think actually went to score 1-2 even from play. Flanagan, 2 points. But I think over looking at Galway, geez, they were very impressive, very physical in tackles. It had a real championship feel to the match. Looking at the scores, like Fintan Burke, unbelievable. 2 sidelines from either side. I think he had 4 points. Cahill 4 points. They had 8 different scores. So I think Sheffield will be impressed with what he's seen. And they closed out the game as well. So they could have easily just limped home, but they closed out and finished strongly as well. So they'll be confident going on, and it'll be a tough battle against Wexford, but you'd still fancy him to come out and tap and probably be top of 1A after that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, do you know what? Kudos to John Kiley there for, it would have been very easy for him to kind of drop Cahill O'Neill after the Wexford game, but he just showed faith and it was rewarded back, especially with a young player coming onto the team, that you give them, you give them the second chance. It was a difficult enough day down in Wexford anyway to make, to make a start, first round of the league, All-Ireland champions, there wasn't an open game that would suit him. He had a bit more space in the Gaelic grounds, and you could see like he's a wonderful striker of the ball and good pace. So both sides, like he really led the line for Limerick, I thought. Just another thing, we mentioned Adam English. He came on as a sub. He kind of had a small. I'd like to see him start, because we're still unsure whether Graham Mulcahy will be, as good as he has been in previous years. He had an excellent county final for Kilmallock, but is Graham going to be a player who comes off the bench for them this year? Because just Adam English is a guy who's really impressed me, and I'd just like to see him maybe start and see what he could do from the start.
Yeah, no better place than TUS Gaelic grounds on Sunday against Cork, who are coming in 2 from 2. I mean, we won't harbour on this too much, lads, but scored 425 away to Offaly. It was a kind of a mismatch. If I describe here, after 11 minutes, it was 3-5 on the board for Cork, 3-8 to 3 points after 19 minutes, 3-12 to 8 points at half time. Cork were 3-16 to 10 points up by 45 minutes. Really kind of tells the tape, 12 different scores from Cork. So I don't know if they've learned a whole pile against Offaly, and poor Offaly, I think, were just literally shell-shocked, just given the start that they made. And I think it'll be a good test, I think, for Cork. I think, after the Clare opening round win, I think this is a kind of a barometer. It'll be interesting to see with Kingston how he plays that. Will he go all out to look to issue a statement of intent to Limerick, or will he kind of back away from it? But I think it should be a good game anyway. Full house, I would say, in TUS Gaelic grounds. What are your thoughts of Cork? I know we don't have James O'Carroll with us tonight, lads, but Cork seem to be going okay at the moment. Yeah,
and if you look at the score sheet, it's the same lads every week for the last 2 weeks. Like Kingston, 2-3 from play. Fitzgibbon and Lehane, 1-2 from play. Coleman, 4 points. That's just Fitzgibbon is really back in form. I think it's coming to the when it comes to championship, the Kingston will have to make decisions regarding who starts and who's a sub. And I really struggle to see how even Harnedy could fit in. They have some real attacking forwards, and they seem to have been coming into a bit of form. So I think it'll all bode well for them come championship. They definitely have options.
Yeah, as well, this is the big round, really, because we'll get to see where Wexford really are going up to Galway. As I said, they've won 2, but not. I know it's great to turn over the All-Ireland champions or whatever, but they're poor Ennis, and we'll really know Galway. We know what level Galway were at the last time out, so we'll have a real barometer on Wexford, but also with Cork. Limerick are going to be smart, and they're not going to want to lose 3 in a row, 2 in a row at home as well. Limerick will be going out all guns blazing, and we'll kind of know where Cork really stand in, because the game against Clare, as we said, it was almost like a challenge match element to it. Offaly then to follow up, as Mark pointed out there, it was over after 10 minutes, that game. So this will be a real test, and we'll kind of know exactly, have Cork improved from last year? Have they learned anything from the All-Ireland final that they can because I think this is the time to try it out as well. They'll learn what might work against Limerick, because there's no point kind of keeping it in your back pocket for championship day and finding out it doesn't work. This is a perfect trial and error opportunity for Kingston. So yeah, as we said, like they have phenomenal forwards, Cork, if they're given space, but I think Limerick will shut that space down as they've done previously against Cork, and that's the question of the Cork forward line. We all know likes of Lahan will, if he's let loose, will score from all angles, but the question in the past, these guys haven't done the business in a tight game, in a real physical game, and that's the question mark that still hands over the Cork forward line.
I think as well the week's break will have suited Limerick, you know, to get that extra bit of work in. They seem to be in a few weeks behind other teams they've played, so I think the extra week would have stood to them. I'd say it'll be a fair battle come throw in.
Yeah, I think we can kind of quickly go to 1B as well, guys. Again, won't gloss over this too much, but Watford running riot over Laois, 7-31 to 19 points. I mean, there was 4 goals scored by Watford at the end of the first half. We've talked about this in previous podcast episodes regarding Laois and their hurling progression. I mean, this does absolutely nothing for Laois senior hurling, really, inter-county wise. And to be honest, Bennett 3-8, 2-6 from frees, fairly emphatic in 1B. Dublin went up to Corrigan Park and beat a very determined Antrim 2-19-2-15. Now, I only saw the highlights on TNG on Monday, but it looked like a kind of tale of two halves there. Antrim really starting very strongly. Neil McManus was very phenomenal with 2-7. But again, Dublin regrouped well after the break, and Paul Crumley's goal in 53 minutes there, along with Donald Burke, who seems to be in fantastic form at the moment in place balls. And again, Dublin have a nice trip down to Semple Stadium to face Tip, who, with a late Jason Ford free, secured a 1-point win over Kilkenny. And I know one or two guys that were in Semple Stadium on the day were querying the first 40 minutes that it looked very much kind of a challenge game feel to it. Did kind of rouse up there in the last 25 minutes, but still important win for Tipperary heading into that Dublin fixture, Rory.
Yeah, again, with the other games in 1B, this is like the standout game because both teams are unbeaten. Tipperary had a kind of struggled a bit. It was horrendous conditions up in Laois that day. Again, drew with Kilkenny, who were minus the just go over against Kilkenny minus the Ballyhale players. So you're kind of wondering where Tip are, and this will be a test because we know Dublin have been going well. If Dublin win this, whoever wins this actually is set up nicely to go and progress in the league. Dublin have Laois to play afterwards, so it'll be a huge game for them and a real test of like where exactly Dublin are. We'll find out in Thurles Saturday evening. It is the tie round from 1B, definitely.
Yeah, certainly, Kieran. You flagged Jason Ford very early in this hurling podcast series. Silver Mines man stepped up again massively for Tip when they needed him against Kilkenny.
Absolutely. They seem to be really reliant on him, but they still have firepower to come in. You're looking at the two McGraths, Jerry Cannon, Banner. So you probably will see, you might even see some of them come from Dublin this weekend. They'll want to start putting their 15 out that's going to possibly play championships. So really impressed with Dublin again. Antrim, it's a hard place to go and win. 9 different scorers again, so it's all positives for Matty Kenny. I think if they were to get over Tip, I think it'd be huge confidence going forward, and it probably will be as good a game as Cork, Limerick, or any games in 1B or 1A. I think Dublin could actually do it. I think Dublin could beat Tipperary.
Certainly. I know Matty Kenny and the Dublin players who have been interviewed before the game against Tip have described this as a litmus test. So really, they're penciling in this game as a big statement of intent fixture for them. God, if they could get a win down in Semple Stadium, that's a massive win for Dublin hurling. And considering the Dublin footballers not going great at the moment, we could galvanise an awful lot of support within the capital on this Dublin hurling team because they seem to have good momentum at the moment, given their Walsh Cup win as well. I mean, kind of going back to the Tip Kilkenny game, I suppose you can credit Kilkenny with the fight backs. I mean, they were 6 points down at the break, and then in the second half they were 5 points down. But the wide count from Kilkenny, they had 19 wides against Antrim in round 1. Round 2, they had 14. Is this kind of a source of concern for Brian Cody and the Kilkenny team going into the latter stages of the league, Rory?
I think what's kind of concerning is you're looking for Kilkenny and say who's going to, especially with them having a chance to blood new players, you're saying who has grabbed the jersey, who has really put their hand up, and it's going to be same old. So far anyway, nobody, as Kieran pointed out earlier, Keown scores 2-2 the first day, doesn't do anything the second day, and it's this inconsistency is a huge problem with them. I'm sure Brian Cody was just hoping that he would have somebody kind of, shoot the lights out or really put a hand up, and it just hasn't happened for them. Look, as we said, when it comes to championship, they're still going to be Kilkenny, and they will. The amazing thing about them is they play like a team that has never won in All Ireland. There's such hunger and ferocity to try and beat them. But in terms of talent, I think Cody might be worried that he is going back to the same pool of players again for this year as he had last year and the year before. Just it's kind of a merry-go-round. You can pick 3 forwards and the other 3 are on a merry-go-round. Like one day Walter Walsh might start, the next day it's Billy Reid, but it's the same bunch of players being rotated all the time. No one is really staking a real claim and holding on to a jersey there.
Like, it's hard to believe we're saying this. This Kilkenny hurling, the conveyor belt of talent coming through the schools, colleges, but I think it will be a fascinating watch with Pádraig Walsh, particularly. He flagged it up here in terms of the half forward line. Richie Reid was appointed, I believe, as Kilkenny captain last night, or nominated. So is that implying that Richie Reid will be getting a little bit more game time for Kilkenny, and he's usually in the half back midfield area, which would maybe suggest that Pádraig Walsh might be getting a bit more versatile to go into that half forward line and maybe win a bit more ball in the air. But I suppose for Tipperary, it was, they got over the line. I thought Craig Morgan, Michael Breen, Barry Heffernan were outstanding. Jake Morris scores the goal as well, but I think this weekend might be the true kind of barometer of Tipperary. And again, it'll be interesting to see with Bonner what he actually does in terms of starting lineup, because as you've mentioned, guys, he's given a few of the new guys a chance. You have the marquee players ready to come in. I suppose no better time than this weekend to really show them off against a real determined, well-drilled Dublin side. Before we conclude here, get your heads on the block time in terms of the fixtures. Maybe starting with 1A, Galway, Wexford, Offaly, Clare, and Limerick, Cork. Who do you fancy in those games? Maybe we start with Kieran first.
First game, Limerick, Cork. I'm going to say Limerick. As Rory pointed out earlier, Cody won't want to lose 3 in a row, and definitely not 2 at home. You could see close to a team that lined out in the All-Ireland final last year. We're hitting week 3 now, so they want to get game time into lads and get a real championship. So I think I'm going to go for Limerick. Clare, I think this will be it's probably coming at a good time for Clare. Give them a chance, get lads some game time maybe. It's Tony Kelly back, Ruairi. I think it's a training game. Yeah. So, it's maybe a good game to get some, get him on maybe for a few minutes. And the last game, I think Galway are at home. They're going to be hard to beat up there.
Yeah, I'm going to copy Kieran with those 3 selections. I just think, Galway at home to Wexford. If it was on Wexford Park, you'd give Wexford every chance, but up in Salthill, you're thinking Galway there, going very well. There's a bit more about Galway so far than Wexford, even though they both have 2 wins apiece. Clare, Tony Kelly will be the kind of the story of the weekend for Clare people. Just great to see him back out again. Apparently, was flying in a training match last weekend, so signs are good, and kind of just when Clare needed a pickup. Offaly does come along now. You're just kind of wondering, are Offaly kind of targeting this game with Clare in poor form as their game to, if they to really try and get a win on the board at home to Clare up, and I think it's Tullamore. It's in the last one was in Burr. I think this one is Tullamore. It could be a danger game for Clare, and were they to lose this game, it would really really be a dampener. With Galway still to play coming up, so I'll go with Clare, but it could be close compared to Offaly's last 2 games. This could be a closer game.
There has to be a reaction from Offaly though after that maul and they got from Cork. Fennelly can talk down the league all he wants, but I think he needs a response off his troops this weekend. I think he'll get a response, but I still think Clare should be far too good. I don't know, Rory, what's the situation with Peter Duggan? I know he's back. Is he anywhere near kind of full fitness here?
Yeah, he had an ankle injury, so he had to get surgery on it. I'm not sure what the time frame is, but I think the league might come too soon for him, and it's a pity because after being away in Australia for a couple of years, of all players, he needed a league campaign to get back up to the speed of things. Clare's Lohan hasn't had much luck with injuries so far this year. There's still Ian Galvin to come back as well. Shane O'Donnell, who's not injured but is meant to be joining up at the end of the league with the panel. So, yeah, he's he has been working with a limited squad, but it has been a chance. Like as we said, Shane Meehan has got plenty of game time. Patrick Crotty is impressed coming on. Yeah. So I'm sure like he's seen it as a positive that way. But at the same time, you do kind of want to get your championship team settled and get a few games under the belt with your championship team, especially coming into the latter stages of the league. So hopefully some of these players, like we've Kelly coming back this weekend, that there's going to be more players, coming off the treatment table and onto the pitch. We certainly need it at the moment.
Well, it's going to be a few tasty games for Clare coming up after the Offaly game, local derbies against Galway and near neighbour Midwest Labour's Limerick as well. So, yeah, I'm going to go with you guys there on those ones. I think Cork's team selection for me will fascinate me in terms of how they kind of play that game. Will they put Mark Coleman still at the half-back line, or will they give him a roving role? That'll be for me the fascinating watch, I think, on that game. But I think I'll go along with you guys. And then 1B, we have Antrim versus Waterford, entertaining Waterford in Corrigan Park. Midlands Derby, Kilkenny entertain Laois in Nolan Park. And we have probably the pick of the games in 1B, Tipperary versus Dublin. So Rory, might start with you first in terms of getting a few predictions there.
Yeah, well, straight away you kind of have to go Waterford, Kilkenny in those two games. And as Kieran has teed up already, this is probably going to be especially the tighter on the 1B, but possibly of the whole weekend, and Saturday evening viewing as well for us, which is great. I really like the Saturday evening games. The hurling matches, they're just, we saw it with the Galway Limerick game the last day. It's just a great time to kind of sit down, watch a game, or even travel to a game. But yeah, I'm going to go with Dublin as well. I just think they seem to be, we're a bit more sure where Dublin are. It is going to be it'll be a huge statement. Can they win down in Thurles and really G them up? Like we're talking about Munster, being like, how do you pick 3 teams out of 5 for Munster? But like Wexford, Galway, Kilkenny and Dublin, it's going to be hard to pick 3 out of those 4 to progress from the Leinster Championship. But we know a bit more after this weekend, I think.
What are your picks?
Yeah, I think Cody would be happy to see Laois coming this weekend because it'll buy the Ballyhale guys another week's rest. I think if you were facing into a Dublin game, would he be forced to kind of give them some action? But yeah, go with Kilkenny there. Tip of Dublin. I said Dublin already. I think they're impressing me this year. I think they're good. They're 9 scores from play the last 2 games, so that's all positive from Eddie Kenny, and I'm gonna say Dublin to be tip, and Waterford. Yeah, I think Waterford obviously have to go to Antrim, but I think they'll still do it. I think Waterford. It's all positive this year for Waterford. Like you've the Ballygunner story, Ty DeBurka back in the field last week, which we had mentioned, which is huge for them. Jamie Barron to come back, with Cahill nail his colours to the match for Waterford for this year and turning on the hip job. Like it's all positive news. They're kind of unmentioned. Like if anyone mentions contenders to Limerick, Galway are the first team or the first name on people's lips. So I think Cahill is he's brewing these lads, and I think I think this is the year if they're going to do it or make a statement. This is the year for.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's put up or shut up time for this group of Waterford lads and Liam Cahill, particularly after the Tipperary job vacancy, the rumours. He's committed to Waterford now, and particularly with the Waterford, success story with Ballygunner as well. I suppose like Desi Hutchinson, Mahoney, I suppose they can get probably the week rest, but there's an awful lot of good things going on with Antrim hurling, and I suppose Rory, you're associated with the University of Limerick, particularly with the Freshers League. You played Queen's University there last week, and you've probably seen firsthand the improvements, probably the development in Antrim hurling.
Yeah, to be honest, it was a super game up in UCD on Monday night, and just like the standard of the game as well was really impressed me. We knew Queen's had won all their games fairly well to get to the final, so we knew it would be the toughest challenge we've had so far, and it proved to be. 2 points in it with maybe 15 minutes left, and they had a goal chance, and we finished strongly then in the last 10 minutes, but had that goal gone in and they had edged ahead of us, we had been up 8 points. It would have been interesting to see what response we would have got. But just speaking to the Queen's management afterwards, they were kind of thrilled, and they were just saying that games against, they don't get many games, like Antrim are developing away in their own pocket, and just getting games against hurlers from, let's say, Munster, Leinster and regular games, it makes a big difference. So you could just you could just see that they are doing things right up there, and that's one thing that they are just geographically just that bit. It is tougher for them, like not having the like. It's so easy for even let's say the club saying for 6 Mile Bridge to go away and play in 1 week or into Galway, Portumna, whoever it is. Like just there's so many geographically. Like we're kind of blessed that we're all close together, but Antrim, as we said, it is a real negative for them that they have to so much travelling to do to get proper games.
Also, I think as well, what I think we should discuss another day is like the GA don't do. They're not doing enough for teams like Antrim and Laois, Carlow, these second tier teams. Like I don't think the GA aren't doing enough for them. Like hurling is in these counties, but they don't get the chance to display it. Like the Joe McDonagh, it's a secondary competition there, and I think more needs to be done to progress them as well. We've only a few hurling counties at the top tier, as opposed to the football. So I think more needs to be done just to get them up to that same level.
You've raised great points here, Kieran, and I definitely think we should have a podcast before championship season kicks off, really, on that, because you look at the Sunday or the Monday supplements in the papers and you're kind of squinting for a 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B division. These are guys that are putting their life and souls into the hurling as well. So I think we definitely will touch upon that point in the next couple of weeks. I suppose my predictions, Waterford definitely, Kilkenny definitely against Laois, but Laois will pick themselves up, I think, after that bad loss against Waterford. And maybe it's shown that Waterford's form could be a good kind of form line here as well, that they're another team that are kind of on top of the ground at the moment. And I think this Tipperary Dublin game has intensity written all over it. Dublin are going to come in very physical with their hurling ability, but no better team than Tipperary when you're kind of writing them off. They'll give it back to you in double in spades. So I go with Tipperary, hesitant a vote on Tipperary just based on home field advantage, but I think that is a cracker of a tie. Lads, it's been a lengthy one here, but I think we had an awful lot to get through. Many thanks to Ruairi Walsh and Kieran Collins for your time this evening, and maybe we'll get back here again next week to review the Allianz Hurling League round 3 fixtures. Many thanks, guys.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode. If you liked what you heard in this podcast, why not subscribe to the Hawkeye Sidekick podcast on either Amazon, Spotify, YouTube or Twitter platforms. You can also follow me at Hawkeye Sidekick on Facebook and Twitter for the latest sporting opinions, articles and reports.